Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Council on Foreign Relations. My name is Ayman Mohyeldin. I'm the host of the weekend primetime on MSNBC. I have the distinct privilege and honor of moderating this conversation with His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani, someone who I've gotten to know well over the last couple of years. We're very lucky and very fortunate to have managed to squeeze in hopefully an hour of his very busy schedule, one of the busiest people, I think, currently on the world stage. Your Excellency, it's great to have you here. We really appreciate it. This is an on-the-record conversation. I'm going to moderate the first part of it with a few questions, and then I'll open it up to the floor and some of our virtual members for questions in the second half. So really, really appreciate you making time for us. I wanted to start, and I know we're going to talk about Qatar's role regionally and the mediation efforts, but I thought maybe I can start with the past 24 hours. We're seeing what is being described as a tenuous ceasefire being challenged. And maybe if you can just give us a read of what has happened in the 24 hours. Do you believe the ceasefire is still holding right now? What have you heard from your counterparts as to their commitments in making sure this ceasefire holds?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ayman, for having me. And I would like to thank the Council for having me and giving me this opportunity here today. In the past 24 hours, I believe that everyone was watching the challenges that we were facing in Gaza and the violations that happened to the ceasefire. Maybe because it's been like something like a significant event that took place yesterday that brought up to the media into that level. But this is like something that expected throughout the ceasefire, and this experience we had at the same time also in the previous ceasefires. We've been engaging in a very intensive way with both parties in order to ensure that the ceasefire holds, and the U.S. engagement, of course, was key in that. And I believe that what happened yesterday was a violation, and that what we were expecting, that this violation also will be, there will be a response for us. But, you know, fortunately, I think like the main parties are, both of them are acknowledging that the ceasefire should hold and they should stick to the agreement.
You're using the word violation. Can you tell us who do you believe violated the ceasefire?
Well, look, if we will start to describe the violations, it will be an open-ended questions. But what happened yesterday, the attack on the Israeli soldiers, that's basically a violation by the Palestinian Party. Now, Hamas has put a statement that they are not like in communication with this group. We don't know yet. We didn't have any verification if this is true or not. We remained focused on making sure that the ceasefire itself holds. And also there were like we heard some discussions about that Hamas are trying to delay the bodies. And we made it very clear for them that this is part of the commitment that we needed to be fulfilled. Now, look, Ayman, from our perspective, since the start of this, since October 7th until today, if you look throughout the process, we've been like, we went through a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, and it wasn't an easy road. It was a very bumpy road. And basically, we tried our best to navigate and to make sure that, you know, we achieved the first one, the first ceasefire, the second one, and now the ceasefire that hopefully will last. And throughout this process and throughout all the ceasefires that we had a lot of violations that's been taking place. Maybe many of them not being reported in the media because they were not as significant as the one that happened yesterday. But yesterday event was honestly something that very disappointing and frustrating for us to see that it's happening. And we were trying to contain it, and we mobilized right away after this and in full coordination with the United States. And we have seen that the U.S. also is committed to the deal.
So the ceasefire still holds, yes, as of now. I think there's been a sense that the first phase of the ceasefire was always going to be the easiest one because it was a very kind of clear terms of what was expected by each side. The second and potentially ultimate phase of the ceasefire was the one that people are really concerned about. Do you believe that both sides have a clear understanding of what happens next? Because there's a question as to whether or not the Israelis expect Hamas to disarm and then ultimately no longer be involved in any governing structure of Gaza. And yet Hamas officials continue to say they will be part of a post-war governing structure and have no intention of releasing or giving up their arms unless the Palestinian people tell them to do so.
Well, look, this is a very it's a very complex war, and it's a very complex solution for it. So, for us, the approach that we took from our side, since October 7th, we had two priorities. One is to bring the hostages back and to end the war and the suffering of the people of Gaza. And if you look throughout the last 2 years, we were the main stable player and factor in that formula, trying to mediate to bring this to the finish line. And I believe what we have achieved in Sharm el-Sheikh, bringing this conflict to the finish line. And our job today is to protect it and to safeguard it and to make sure that it holds, and then also make sure that it's implemented. It will be a complicated process. It will not be an easy process to go through the disarmament and the decommissioning, but it's part of the agreement. Now, I don't see that the governance will be a challenge, because this is something that we've been very clear with Hamas, and Hamas response was very clear to us that they are willing to give up the governance. The weapon question, from their perspective, this is an obligation on all the factions, not on Hamas only. And basically, we are trying to push them all in order to get to a point where they acknowledge that they need to disarm and they need to move on to the next stage. And we need to make sure that the Palestinians are safe and the Israelis are safe. I think that's the whole purpose of the decommissioning and disarmament, and creating a political horizon for the Palestinian people, and creating the Palestinian agency that will be able to be the sole holder of arms.
Do you see right now, I mean, I'm not sure if you had the chance to see, but in a recent 60 Minutes interview, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner both suggested that there was a development plan that has been in the works for 2 years. Some have said it kind of models the Berlin style, where the Israelis will control one part of Gaza and whoever's on the other side will control the other. And the concern is that it will split Gaza, Israel retain a certain control. Do you believe that there will be at some point, if the decommissioning and the ceasefire holds, a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip?
Well, this is actually, when you look at President Trump's plan, the 20 points, it has, the major themes are ending the war, no occupation, and no annexation. These are like three key principles that's been highlighted in the proposal. Now, the first redeployment to implement the first stage of this deal allows the Israelis to stay in Gaza within these lines, but ultimately they need to also to withdraw once also the international stabilization forces come into place, and then the process of decommissioning starts. Then the Israelis should withdraw from Gaza. But we need to go also to address the issue of and the root cause itself. We need to create the political horizon and the political environment, the right environment for the Palestinians and for the Israelis in order to reach an understanding and an agreement for coexistence. That's what we are looking for. We are looking for a two-state solution that will put an end for the suffering for both sides.
And do you think that is still attainable given the political makeup of the current Israeli government, which is talking about annexation and saying resettling Gaza?
It will always be attainable because, look, I mean, whatever the rhetoric that you are hearing now from the politician, at the end of the day, I believe there are enough, wise people who understand that you cannot have, you cannot have two people treated differently under one state. And the Palestinians to have their own state, this is their right. And Arab Peace Initiative has actually laid a plan for Israel to normalize with the region in exchange of the statehood for the Palestinians and providing Israel with the guarantees. Now, we understand that after October 7th, there are a lot of complications and a lot of trauma that happened within the Israeli community that made maybe two-state solution unattainable at this stage. But the moment will come where we will have, we'll bring, all the parties together, and everyone will recognize that that's the only way forward. And I believe right now with the U.S. engagement, and we have seen how the president, the vice president, the special envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, all of them, they are heavily engaged, and the Secretary of State heavily engaged in making sure that the ceasefire holds and making sure that we are crossing the line to the next stage, which is hopefully rebuilding, rebuilding the trust, rebuilding Gaza, and then also creating a political horizon for the Palestinian people.
Let's go back to the morning when Doha was attacked. And I wonder if you can talk to me, just reflect on that specific moment, how much of a game changer you felt in the dynamics of the region when Israel carried out a strike in Doha, and what that meant for the state of Qatar, how Qatar decided that it was still going to remain engaged, even though it had just been attacked by one of the parties that was supposed to at least respect the mediator's role.
Well, look, Ayman, this attack was a shock. Well, it wasn't a shock only for us in Qatar, it was a shock for the entire world. And if you look at where the attack happened and how it happened, how it took place, it happened in a neighborhood, in a residential area where it's like a well-known location this is the location where the negotiations are taking place. And also, there are schools, embassies around these buildings. And the trauma that they created for the Qatari people actually is also something like affected them significantly. Yet, we still have a responsibility as a country to protect our citizens, to ensure that there are enough security assurances and security guarantees for them, and actually also ensuring that our role will remain adding value to put an end for the conflict and will not be affected. We always, if you look at the pattern of our policies, Ayman, in the last 10 years, we always take the high road. We always try to pursue diplomacy over any other options. We went through all the legal channels, the diplomatic channels, in making sure that this attack is not repeated and making sure that Qatar and the people of Qatar are protected. And then we resumed the talks. But what the people don't know actually is that on the day after the day of the attack, and when His Highness was speaking with President Trump, and President Trump was telling him that this might represent an opportunity for us to put an end for the war in Gaza, His Highness was very much positive on that. Although we have held all the communication with the Israelis at that time, we remained engaged with the U.S. in order to make sure that we can get to a solution.
This might be a bit of a difficult question, but there was some questions as to whether or not the United States knew about the attack. Does Qatar have an assessment as to whether or not, I mean, I know the administration came out and said that they didn't know about the attack, they were notified about the attack, but I imagine that it's a difficult situation for you and your leadership in the sense that on one hand, if America did know about the attack and they didn't warn you, that would be a breach of trust. If they didn't know about the attack, what does that mean that America's closest ally in the region, which receives billions of dollars, can carry out an attack against a very close American ally?
Well, I think the attack has affected like the heart of the security architecture of Qatar and the security architecture of the region.
Interesting. How
because so? When you look at this is for the first time that an Israeli strike killed someone from the GCC, and it killed a Qatari citizen who was just serving as part of the security details in that location, and he used to serve in the American embassy before that. So. And everyone was shocked. Everyone in the region was shocked. You have seen the leaders from the region, from different countries, they were coming to Qatar, the summits that took place in Qatar. This has shaken like the entire understanding of what kind of security we have. Now, on the U.S. side, we of course, the relationship that Qatar has with the U.S., we deeply appreciate it, we deeply value. And what we hear from the President and the Vice President and the Secretary of State, they were very clear that they have no knowledge about the attack. And of course, we respect what they are saying, and we understand that this is a decision that's been taken solely by the Israelis. But the concept itself to feel betrayed that you are attacking, a mediation while it's ongoing. At the same time, on the day of the attack, there were the Colombians negotiating, and just hundreds of meters away from that location. We had the Rwanda and DRC negotiations ongoing, and having this attack in Qatar on 9th of a country that doing all these kind of mediations being attacked, this has never been thought of. And I think that the same shock we heard it from the US and from the President himself, that he will not allow this to happen again. And he will make sure that all the assurances that we will require will be in place for us.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about some of those mediation efforts in just a second, but just to close this out, how did the momentum then change after that? You said that President Trump spoke to His Highness and said this could be an opportunity. How did we get from then September 9th to the ceasefire? Did something change in the calculation of the Americans saying we're willing now to put leverage on Israel to bring them to sign this deal in a way that we hadn't seen before?
Well, I think that the attack itself has shown the U.S. that there are all the red lines being crossed now in the region. And, Qatar is a country that hosts 10,000 U.S. soldiers. And we have the largest U.S. airbase outside the United States that we are hosting in Doha. Having an attack from a U.S. ally is out of the equation for us. Yeah. And it was never calculated in our defense formula. And look, if you look at throughout the history of Qatar, we've been attacked 3 times. The first time was by Saddam Hussein. It was Scud missiles which followed the desert in the 90s. The second time was with Iran when they were responding to the U.S. and we intercepted most of the missiles. One of them has reached the target in our base, actually, in our side of the base, also not the U.S. side of the base. This attack was different because it killed one of our citizens. And basically, you know that how emotional we were at that time. But His Highness, when the president mentioned that to him, he stood up for it. He stood up for his region, and he put the region's interest ahead of his own interest. And this is, we know that this is something that will bring stability to the region without, compromising the rights of our people and the rights for our country to be protected.
Do you think, because you said that it brought the GCC a little bit closer and other countries in the region saw that if Qatar can be attacked this way, they too certainly can be attacked. Did that change the calculation? Do you have any insight whether it changed the calculation of other countries in the region as to how they perceive Israel and whether or not a country like Saudi Arabia would go ahead with Abraham Accords?
No, definitely. Actually, it affected how the GCC looking at Israel now, because when they see the attack on one of the countries, you have seen like the first leader who visited Qatar was Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of United Arab Emirates, and then the next day we have the summit, and we have the Crown Prince of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we have defense ministers coming together a couple of days after the attack in order to coordinate and to recalibrate our defense formula. This attack was a shock, but was a game changer for the entire region. The entire GCC started to rethink where the threats will be coming from. Now we have seen, we have witnessed a lot of conflicts, and we have mediated in a lot of conflicts, and we went through a lot of unfortunate events throughout these mediations. But attacking the mediator was like
unprecedented,
and it was out of any calculation.
Speaking of your mediation roles, you were talking about some of the ones. I think you're mediating currently 7, maybe 8 conflicts around the world that Qatar is involved in. Why? Why do you want to take on the headache of negotiating one is fine, but then negotiating 8 around the world? Why take on that responsibility and put yourself in a situation where you constantly are in these high stakes talks?
Look, you have, if you are a state, you are between 2 choices. Either you are a passive and just stay there and doing nothing about it. I'm a small country. Thanks God, I'm blessed with resources. I have a small population, and I can just, focus on my country and my country development, and this is our priority for. But the region that we are living in, it's not it's not an easy region. It's a region that has a lot of history, has a lot of baggages that came from this history, and also you see proxies, ancient wars everywhere. We found out that Qatar's ability to move in a discreet way and below the radar, and making sure that conflicts can be resolved, even sometimes it can be prevented before it happens, and can be resolved in quiet rooms, and we proved that successfully. Qatar became a responsible player in that field, and mediation actually is something that enshrined in our constitution, and since the founder of the country, Sheikh Jassim, he's someone who was always calling for peace, always calling for engagement, for dialogue. And this is just, a heritage that we have, and we are happy that today we are defined as global mediator, not only for the region, but this trust that we have built throughout the years in our mediations in the region made our mediation becoming more global. And you see that it's going all the way from Latin America to Africa to Asia, and that's basically what we are doing.
Are you making progress on any of the other ones that you feel will be resolved? I mean, you talked about Colombia, you talked about Rwanda. Which one are you most optimistic about?
All of them are ongoing right now. Honestly, I cannot, distinguish one from another. But for example, with the recent conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan, we hosted a round of talks that led to a ceasefire. Now the second round of talks to extend the ceasefire has been ongoing in Turkey in the last few days. And this is something which we are hoping that we'll see a result as soon as possible. But then DRC and Rwanda, it's also a very complex issue. We try to make sure that progress in the right direction, and that we have enough understanding in order to propose for them a meaningful solutions.
Okay. We can open up some of the questions now to members of the council, and I think we also have some people online, so I think if there's anyone that has a question, please raise your hand, and we can start in the back and work our way up front to this lady right here. Yeah.
I'm Alexandra Starr with International Crisis Group. I was wondering if you could speak about the role Qatar has played in mediation with Venezuela, and in particular, whether the current actions of the United States in the Caribbean are impacting those talks.
Regarding our efforts with Venezuela, we started this during President Biden administration when there was an engagement between the two governments, and this engagement actually has led to a release of some Americans be back home. Now, with President Trump, we've been re-engaging with them if the U.S. are still interested in engaging to find a solution with Venezuela. We are ready to mediate and to help to facilitate that. But currently, there is nothing solid is ongoing.
Actually, there was another lady that was here, and then you have right here, right here.
Your Excellency, my name is Rina Amiri, the former Special Envoy for Afghan Women, Girls, and Human Rights. It's good to see you again. You noted your efforts in Afghanistan with the Afghanistan-Pakistan conflict, but Qatar has been involved for quite a long time working on Afghanistan and trying to move the Taliban towards a more moderate approach. Yet, despite your efforts, they're increasingly becoming hardline. They've shut down the internet for 2 days. They continue to crack down on a wide range of groups, have continue to deprive women of education. What do you see as the pathway towards moving Afghanistan towards greater inclusivity and stability, and what should the role of the international community be? Because we're seeing Afghanistan completely disappear from the attention of the broader international community. Thank you.
Well, of course, we didn't expect after the agreement and Taliban took over the governance over there that we will have a smooth transition, or we will have, Afghanistan that all of us, we are aspiring to see. But also, it didn't go as bad as it was expected. And we know that there are a lot of challenges over there. Now we need, when we look at it from our understanding, that there are some of the Afghan leaders who are trying to, to put this agenda forward with all these restrictions. But there is also another camp within Afghanistan who wants to see Afghanistan opening up with the world and having a better relation with everyone around them. And I believe that what will prevail at the end, the ones who want to build a state that has a normal relationship with the international community, and basically the efforts to change this situation in Afghanistan should be carried out by the international community in a way, in an incentivizing way, instead of penalizing way. Our approach is, instead of saying that because you are doing that, I'm going to sanction you, should be the opposite when it comes to Afghanistan. If you are going to do this, I'm going to reward you by that. So I think that this mindset needs to be changed by the international community. Then we can get maybe Afghanistan in the right track.
We have a virtual question that we can take, and then okay, let's take one more from the room here. This gentleman right here.
Your Excellency, my name is Andrew Gunlock. I'm the CEO of Blythe Schroeder. I have an easy question for you. You come to the city of New York on the eve of electing our first ever Muslim mayor. It is also
Is it tonight? I don't know.
No. On the,
okay.
Not the actual eve. A week away.
Okay.
It's not a surprise. He's run an absolutely great campaign. And the Muslim population in New York, mostly Bangladeshi and Pakistani, has doubled over the past 30 years. The Jewish population is flat. It has brought presidential attention. It has brought in claims of funding of the Muslim Brotherhood, of Qatar. But it is the most important Jewish city in the world. And it's also a merchant city, not unlike Dubai or Doha, where the merchant class has always run the city from its founding. And we're looking for governance from the center. At least all the great mayors have been from the center. So I'm curious what it means for you as a Muslim, as an important mediating country, to have the most important city in the world with the biggest press run by a Muslim. And if he were here with us today, what would you be asking from him to help bring peace to your region and to the conflicts where he can bring attention that no other mayor, no other city can?
Well, I think for me as a state, it doesn't make any difference who will be elected to be a mayor of New York or of any other city. I'm sorry to say that but people are unfortunately became very obsessed that Qatar is trying to project influence everywhere and trying to fund this and that, and they are the ones behind him because he's Muslim. And I think that we just need to take a step back and think about it. What would be Qatar's interest in doing such a thing? I mean, my interest is to build a strong relationship with the United States. I have a strong economic partnership with them. I have a strong security partnership with them, and in defense, I have a strong energy partnership with them. So this combination of partnerships that has multiple sectors, I need to safeguard and to protect it. That's my whole focus, is how to protect the relation between Qatar and the United States, because the United States matters to me as a country, and I matter for the United States as I'm hosting their largest airbase. When it comes to the energy sector, we are like the two biggest suppliers in the world for LNG, and the election of New York and all those claims, unfortunately, it's for me. I love New York as a city. Whoever is the mayor, I mean, it's the American people's choice.
The traffic could get better one way or the other. That could impact you.
That's the only thing what I'll be happy about. Other than that, I have no idea, no relation with any one of them, with any of the candidates, actually.
This gentleman right here.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, Bob Diamond, I was the former chief executive of Barclays, and one comment and one question. The comment is just to say that when we look back at the financial crisis in 2008, people generally point to Warren Buffett as being a brilliant investor when he invested in Goldman Sachs and Bank of America. And most people don't realize that it was the Qatar Investment Authority in Qatar that put £6 billion into Barclays, allowed us to buy Lehman Brothers' U.S. business at a very attractive rate. I personally know the return you got on that. I won't announce that right now. But I do want to say that of all the things that Qatar has done, they don't get the credit they deserve for Qatar Investment Authority being the astute investor they are. Apropos of that and apropos of banking, the question I have for you, Your Excellency, is given your ties to the U.S. and the dollar, do you have any worries about the role of the dollar as the reserve currency?
No, actually, look, we have a lot of confidence in the U.S. economy. That's for us it's a fact. It's U.S. today is dominating the world economy, and to be like for our currency to be pegged to the dollar, it's because it is a stable currency, and our main production is the oil, which is dollarized. Now, to have an alternative, this always should be any state plan B, to have an alternative reserve of gold and other currencies. But for us, I think that even with the current circumstances, the U.S. economy is resilient and will just, we'll get through this period and we'll move on.
Actually, let's take one virtual question, then I'll come back to you. Sorry, virtual question.
We'll take our next question from Nick Schifrin.
Hi there. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me this time. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much. I want to go back to where you guys began this conversation and where Ayman started. So just to put a point on what happened over the last 24 hours, the Americans have made it clear to the Israelis that they want Israel to respond to any Hamas violation within reason. And so can you judge Israel's response to Hamas's violation? Palestinians are saying only more than 100 people were killed in these airstrikes. And just in general, can you give us an insight into how you spoke to, or how the mediator spoke with Hamas yesterday to try and ensure that the single violation from yesterday did not continue into today? Thanks.
Thank you. Well, look, I think if you look at it from an outsider perspective, it's at the end who started the violations and who then the response will be a reaction to this violation. Yes, yesterday the situation was complex and there was a violation that by a Palestinian group. Now, we heard also conflicting statements from Hamas itself that we need the clarifications and we need an answer from them on that. That's some statements mentioning that this group they lost communication with and they don't know what they are doing, and other response from them that what happened is by a group which are not related to them. It doesn't matter for us who did what. What matters to us that how we make sure that we safeguard the agreement. We make sure that this event or this occasion doesn't affect or make this agreement collapse, and making sure that we are back on track. And us and the U.S. and Egypt and Turkey, all of us, we were focused on that direction only.
We'll go back here. This lady right here.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Camille Massey with Synergos. Would you be able to take us into some of those quiet rooms under the radar where these mediations happen? We live in a world with such a trust deficit that see the role that you're playing and that your team are playing in so many conflicts in the world gives hope. It would be interesting just to hear you talk about the attributes you seek for members of your team and what some of the lessons you've learned with this responsibility that emanates from the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, look, we try to handle every mediation differently. First of all, we need to have a clear understanding on both parties and their requirements, their dynamics, and what they are able to do and what they are not able to do, and have a full understanding of that and trying to provide solutions and bridge the gaps between them. That's basically our role when it comes to mediation. Now, the nature of the mediation and the way the mediation is conducted is different. You have a situation where, like, for example, in the negotiations between US and Taliban, it was a direct negotiations between the two parties, and Qatar was facilitating between them, making sure that every gap is bridged, making sure that whenever the talks collapse, that we bring them back together and we put them back on track. But if you talk about, for example, Israel and Hamas negotiations, they never been in the same room across each other from the table and talking to each other. And this is making our life more challenging and more difficult, because we are the messengers between both, and we are trying to present solutions genuinely thinking about it as a solution that satisfies both parties. So when I'm wearing the hat of the mediator, I don't look at what will be like my interest as a country. I look at the interest of the parties. I look at the interest of the region that where the conflict is, and I put that ahead of any other interest. And this is how we build it. And look, if you will ask me, like, what is distinguishing our mediation and why people are reaching out to Qatar, I think number one is trust, and the trust that we have built through friendships around the world has, of course, boosted Qatar in that role, and also the transparency that we are dealing with. We are not trying to convey like wrong messages between the parties, between the parties to achieve success. But we are trying to be very clear with them and proposing for them solutions that's adaptable by both parties. And that's how we work. I just give you an example on the recent, like the event of Gaza. Throughout the ceasefires that we had, in many occasions we were talking to both parties, taking their concerns in consideration, and also like our position, for example, that with Israel is not the best position, because for us they are still occupying an Arab land, and they are not giving the Palestinians their right. But we never dealt with them in an unfair way. We've been always listening to them, understanding, and trying to put ourselves in their shoes, and also proposing solutions that are adoptable by them. They can do it, not proposing for them impossible solutions. And carrying this with you as a genuine mediator, I think this is what distinguishes Qatar from the others. We try not to like mask things and sugarcoat them in order to appear nice, and then when we reach to the final stage of the agreement, everything collapses. Or even sometimes when we reach the agreement ceremony, we celebrate today and the next day everything collapses. So I think our main focus is how to ensure that our credibility and the trust that we have built never be affected.
Has there been a mediation effort somebody asked you to do that you said, I'm not touching this, we don't want to be involved in this one?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You want to tell us who it is?
No, I cannot.
I thought I would try. We have one more virtual question.
We'll take our next question from Jane Harmon.
Thank you and good morning. Let me thank the government of Qatar again for your enormous effort to reach for 85,000 refugees coming out of Afghanistan following the chaotic exit that our country made, and to do DNA testing and try to reunite them with their families. It really was a heroic effort, and you deserve enormous praise. My question is about governance, both in the Palestinian Authority and in Israel. I don't think you've addressed this, but what are the chances that with Mahmoud Abbas's advanced age and the corruption of his government, and with Bibi Netanyahu's far-right coalition, that we might see a transition in both areas, and that might lead to a quicker resolution of certainly what many of us support, which is a path to two states.
Thank you very much. First, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your questions. It's very important because today, when we are looking at the situation in Gaza, one of the main questions is the governance, how the governance will be identified, and how also for us, from an Arab perspective, how we make sure that Gaza will never be separated from the West Bank, and they will be always dealt with as one unit. And this is also when I was talking about the understanding of the parties, because of our understanding of the dynamics, whether it's on the Israeli side or on the Palestinian side, we came up with this formula together with our partners in Egypt to have this independent Palestinian committee as a temporary solution until the reforms of the PA taking place, and then bringing them together under one umbrella. These efforts are carried out in terms of reforming the PA, carried out by many countries in the region, but led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And it's been progressing, and we are working very closely with them. I think that the Saudi-French plan that's been announced during the United Nations General Assembly put clear milestones for the reformation that the Palestinian Authority needs to do. And I hope that this will follow course. And even within President Trump's 20 points plan, we have that the governance will be, the governance of Gaza will be temporary until the PA reforms and become ready to resume their role and to assume their role in the Gaza Strip.
Okay, can I follow up on that real quick and ask, why doesn't Israel release Marwan Barghouti, somebody who Palestinians agree could be a force for change, a catalyst for change, somebody who is well regarded? They've released people who have much more longer prison sentences, much more, quote unquote, blood on their hands, as they say, about Palestinian prisoners. But why would they not release somebody who can be a catalyst for the change that could herald in a new era of governance? And maybe just a quick follow-up on that as well is, why would Arab countries, Gulf countries, help rebuild Gaza or help rebuild the West Bank if Israel can come in every couple of years with impunity and bomb it and no accountability?
Well, you asked two important questions. First of all, regarding Marwan Barghouti and why they don't release him, I think this question needs to be asked for the Israeli government. But there are tens or maybe hundreds of Marwan Barghouti in the Israeli prisons that's been prosecuted and tortured and mistreated, and no one is talking about it. And we know, we've seen, we had all the reports that's coming out of these prisons that some of them are being imprisoned without even trial, and they need to be released. But the Israelis, they have their own calculations and when it comes to the release. And for example, when the hostage deal was reaching to the finish line, I remember my conversation with Steve and Jared, both of them, they were telling me if the list will remain, this is an easy thing that we will finish it in 2 hours. I told them that you guys don't know the two parties. Actually, last time we spent days continuous, working 24/7 in order to get a consensus around the names of the prisoners who will be released. So Israel will never allow for symbolic name to be released, or maybe this name has another complications under him. And there are plenty of humanitarian situations. There are some of the prisoners who spend maybe 40 years in the Israeli prison right now. Either they are stage 4 cancer, or they are blind, or they are not able like they are not able to walk, or they are not, like they are paralyzed. And yet they are still there in the prison and not allowing them to be released because of the symbolism of their names. I think this is something that needed to be addressed, and I think also Israel should be held accountable for what's happening on their prisons with the Palestinians. I don't know if any of you here watching the videos that what his minister Ben Gvir is doing for the prisoners over there is very inhumane and in a barbaric way. And I think that this should never be acceptable for anyone in our today's world. What's the second?
About bombing, why would Arab countries, Gulf countries, European countries?
Yeah. Well, this is also another very important part. Look, from my perspective as state of Qatar, I'm telling you, we took this commitment on ourselves since October 7th to bring everybody back home from the Israeli side and to end the war in Gaza. And that was our focus, that was our mission. We focused on that and making sure throughout the process that even when we reach the destination, there is a smooth transition. And smooth transition means that this transition needs to be safeguarded in order for us to make sure that our money will not be also wasted in another war. That means that Israel should stop provocation for the Palestinians, and the Palestinians, Hamas namely, and the other factions, needs to stop also intimidating and threatening the Israelis and shooting missiles on them. I think once we reach the formula of the confidence-building measure between the two parties and making sure that this will not be repeated again, and making sure that the U.S. also stay focused on that. And with what I'm seeing right now and what I'm experiencing with the current administration, with both Steve and Jared, and also Admiral Cooper from the CENTCOM, we've seen them like they are heavily involved and committed to the process, making sure that it's holding up. And we are working together with them closely on a day-to-day basis. And we told them that for us, we did our part, but we will always remain there helping you and supporting all the efforts of the reconstruction, of moving on to the next stage, and hopefully to get for the Palestinian the statehood at the end.
This gentleman right here has had his hand up.
Thank you very much. Joe Crisparo, Royal Bank of Canada. Your Excellency, thank you again for being here. You launched Enterprise Qatar, a really great initiative to develop startups and small and medium-sized businesses in your country. We'd love to get your sentiment on the current entrepreneurial ecosystem and kind of mindset in your country. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I didn't expect that question, but thank you very much, actually. You made my day. Because whenever I'm on stage, everyone is interested about conflicts and wars, not about those positive stuff. But yes, that's right, actually. I was honored back in 2009 to establish what's called Enterprise Qatar, and to look at the ways how to enhance small and medium enterprises and making them a vital part of our economy. Of course, since that time until today, there are a lot of changes has happened, and we have seen the contribution and the growth in the small and medium enterprises sector in Qatar is growing in a significant way. And we have seen that even if you look at our growth reports in the last year, it's all led by non-hydrocarbon sectors, and mainly most of them are small and medium enterprises. Now we are trying to also to make sure that we are taking them throughout the journey and taking them from being small and medium to internationalize them and creating them as a national champions for us, as other national champions that we have created as government. And this we are right now in the process of developing some instruments within the government that brings those companies to the next level. At the end of the day, Qatar is a small country with a small population. We have a small market, but when we look at ourselves, we don't look at only inside and how to serve our market. We are surrounded with like almost, you know, I don't know, India population, how big it is, but like I calculate just, you know, the adjacent countries, we are around 600 million. When you look at, you know, Iran and Pakistan and all the other countries without India, with India probably 2 billion. And it's all within a radius of 3 to 4 hours flights, or the shipping in a very short, small number of days. So this is something that we want to capitalize on, and we want to bring our companies to help them to serve those markets.
This lady right here. One second. Take the microphone, please.
Yes. Sorry. Hi. Thought I was so loud. Hi, Naima Raza here, journalist and podcaster. One country I don't have a question about Qatari economic development, unfortunately, but I was going to ask you about Iran, a country that actually hasn't been mentioned for the last hour or so. Obviously, before the September 5th attack, there was the Iranian attack on a U.S. base in Qatar. I'm curious why it hasn't come up. Do you think the Iranians are less relevant now since U.S. strikes, or are they not playing a critical role in the region going forward from your perspective?
I didn't get the question.
The question is about Iran.
Yeah, about
and what role they play in the future of the region.
The future of the region. Yeah.
And why it hasn't really come up in the last hour. Are they less relevant? There's a theory out there.
No. So,
I'm responsible for the question.
No. I mean, from all of us.
So that bias is on me, but
look, first of all, you know, just very brief geography lesson. Qatar is like almost 150 miles away from Iran coast. So it's nothing. Iran is my neighbor. I share with them the largest gas field in the world, and I own the majority of this gas field. For me, the stability of Iran is key. It's not a luxury that you know, I'm just looking for. It's a necessity. For me, it's very important that Iran to be stable. And to be stable, we need to think about it in a diplomatic way, how we reach a solution through diplomacy, while we ensure that our region is a nuclear-free region. There is no nuclear race, and Iran has the right to develop their peaceful nuclear program for power generation or whatever within the international law. And it's concerning for us to see, you know, sometimes and to hear this rhetoric that's coming out from Israel or from Iran on the escalation. And we are trying to engage with the U.S. and with the Iranians to make sure that the talks come back on track between the two countries, because I believe once we have the talks started between Iran and the U.S. in a serious way, we can achieve an agreement, we can achieve a deal that will be better for everyone, for us in the region, for Iran, and for the United States.
Yep. Sorry, we've run out of time, and I know the Prime Minister has a very busy schedule. Your Excellency, thank you so much. I just want to remind everyone this will be online. The transcript and recording will be online for anyone to want to access. Thank you so much.